So as our validations are not working, so what we will be doing here, so we need to uh, define a middleware in our main.ts file. So after that your validation will start working. So what I'm gonna type here, app.use global pipes, and we need to use new validation pipe, validation pipe, so it must be somewhere, yeah. So once we configure it with so we created an instance of validation pipe and we configured it in you can say in middleware, then after it will automatically try to capture all the errors. Okay, there are the settings as well, so if you want you can go ahead and find out like what are these properties and how we can configure it based on the needs. If needed, we'll definitely will see what are the things we can do it. I mean like transform, exception factory. So these are the things if we want to do advanced stuff, we want to put custom stuffs there, then we can definitely do it. For now, like we just need to define this line of code, and I'm expecting that our errors will start appearing based on the schema, based on the class validator, what we can say annotations we have defined here. Depending on that, it will start throwing errors. So let's try it out and see if that works. Okay, so now we are actually seeing the errors, and then now we'll have to fix it before we can just pass this stuff. So what happened to this? Okay, fine. So let's say we need to put email, and let's say I'm going to put something, let's say member @gmail.com. So why I'm just naming it something like this, because I will be creating a role with the same name. That's why I'm just keeping it this way. It will be easier to later recognize email ID, like what role it has. That's why. And if I try to make a request now, you will see the email error is gone. And similarly, let's do something like uh, name here. So what we can do here is name, so we can put some random name, Jack member or something like that. If I try to execute this, you will see all the errors of name has gone. Now we are seeing 2 errors of password, so password is mandatory. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put some random number here, and let's say if I put it in number, I mean this way, so will it throw some error? Let's try it out. Yes, it is throwing error. We can modify the text, like the password should be okay, so it's not 8 character, I guess that's why it is throwing error. So let's fix this, and it is still throwing error. So basically we can modify one text here, like it should be a string. Actually, if I try to put it in the string, ideally it should work. Yes. Now if I go in log, we are still getting null. The reason behind that is in user service it is trying to find it from the user, I mean database. And since if you go back in the database SQLite file, we'll notice we don't have any users yet. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna close this, and I'm going to create one user now. So to do that, what I need to do is I now I have this, I know like this user doesn't exist, so it won't get into this condition. And then I can type here something like Okay, so the one thing I would like to do simultaneously, let's say when we are passing some password here, we don't want to save it directly in our database. We could save this. I mean, we could have done directly saving it in the database, but it's a general practice, like we should save it in some encrypted format. So what we can do is we can just use bcrypt or some library to hash this password. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna install bcrypt. So pnpm I bcrypt. Okay, now that we have a bcrypt, so I'm going to create a method. Let's create a method here. So ideally what we can do, we can create it in we can write the hashing logic here, but in case if we needed to hash it somewhere else, let's say we are creating some reset password, we are creating some forget password thing, we need to use that method. So in that case I can do it in here. Yeah, let's do it. That's not related to user, actually that is related to hashing something. So let's say we put it util, and in util I will write something like crypto.util.ts. You can name it anything. And here what I'm gonna do, uh, I'm gonna create one method actually, and this method will be export async function, and with function I need to pass hash password. We can also use you can say we can also use arrow function. So we can do this way, hash password, and we can then pass some string like password, and then we can return bcrypt dot hash. And okay, so it's not detecting bcrypt, so let's do one thing first. Import star as bcrypt from bcrypt. So we don't have the types file of this bcrypt file, so it's asking to install the types bcrypt. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna copy and paste and install it as dev dependency. So I will use -d and install it. Now that this types/bcrypt is installed, this error should go away. And if I try to access hash, then we can find it. And if you notice, like, it takes data and then something like salt or rounds. So I'll be using 10 here, and similarly I will create one method for compare passwords that we will use it in at the time of login. So let's do that at the time of login only. Let's import this method and create users. So I'm just gonna close all the tabs. There are so many tabs, right? I'm just gonna close all the tabs, and first what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use const hashed password. Now I'm just going to use password create user dtos password. And is it a promise? Yes, it's a promise, so we'll have to await it now. So what we can do next, so what we can do is we have this password, we have the user dto as well, so we need to create an instance of entity. So there's a method in repo. So if you use user repository, if you use create, So it doesn't create an instance, it doesn't create a row in the database. Instead it will create an instance, just creates an instance, new entity instance. So what we can do, we can just use this method, and what we can do, like we can pass all the data. Let's say we can pass create user detail, and then we can modify the password with the hashed password. Okay, and what else? If something else comes up later in this during this this development of the project, will we keep adding it here, come back and add it here. And now it will return one instance of new user or something like that. And then what we are going to do, we are going to use one method. If you hover over it, it won't be a promise. The reason behind that, it is just creating an instance of object. Probably it would be using object.assign or something like that internally. And if I write use this dot user repository and save is a generic method. You can use it for create new, or you can update. So it will just save something in the database, and if it finds the ID, the primary key, it will just update. If it doesn't find the ID, then it will just create a new row there. Now we can just use this, and what we are going to do, okay, so we can also check one more thing, like we can handle the error here. I mean, we can add try catch here, but why I'm not adding try catch, the reason behind that is we'll be creating one global exception. So let's say if in case the user is not present, we are throwing this exception. That's when we also saw, like, we are getting this response. We can also get this response when there will be user exist. But when we will handle the global filter, we will keep a global exception handler, then we don't need to explicitly throw these errors. Based on the conditions we can throw. Okay, now if I try to return this, what it is saying, cannot find return this. Okay, I'm just going to remove it now, and let's do this way, and this is going to return a user with all the user thing. Okay, let's try to run this application and see if we are able to create one user in our system. So I'm going to use the same setup, email, name and password, as these are the mandatory thing defined in the create user. If you see, email is mandatory, name is mandatory, password, and rest of the things are optional. If you see the question mark here, right? And now if we try to make a request, so now we are getting complete user details. Okay, so also it's a not good practice to get the password back to the user, or in response we doesn't export the password, right? So how we can handle this case, like do we need to create different instance, different type, just to remove this password? There's various ways to do it. We can just remove password from here, or we can use class transformer to create a different instance, and we can just exclude exclude those properties. Like if we mark here, let me just show you in response. Let's say if we mark it exclude, then this will exclude this from this, response. Let's do this and try it out. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put it here, let's say promise, and see if this works. Now it works. Although if I try to create different user, let's say member1 and Aaron, I'm just adding some random stuff. I'll keep the password 128 so that if I needed to log in later, I need to know like what password it had. Okay, we are still getting this password, right? So it's still not working. I will tell you why it is not working. The reason behind that is we just defined as response user DTO in create user as a return, but uh, Nest is not automatically able to recognize this exclude. So in class transformer we have plain to instance method, so that we can use, and that will automatically remove all the properties depending on what annotations we are doing. So in by default it nothing will happen until unless we do it. So this doesn't get removed automatically. It's there's no magic something like that. So this is just for the class transformer, and it has a method which knows like, okay, this field needs to be removed from this output, so it remove it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna go back in user service, and what I can do, I can just go back and use plain to instance, and in this, so first it needs what type we want to use. So we are going to use response user d2, and the next we just want to plain unknown option, so we are going to pass the object itself. Okay, so we will be doing this not here but after the return, since if we remove password before this, what will happen is like it will not save the password and it will not allow us to do that as well. So let's save this, I mean user here, and save the user in new variable. So I'm just saving it in new variable, and I'm gonna put it here. And now if I return this, what I'm gonna get is, let me just format my code and let me try it again, and I will just enter member2 Michael. This time we don't have password here, so it worked. Similarly, like and if I go back in my SQLite database, what I can see here, so if I click on it, I will see we have 3 users, and these passwords are encrypted, it is hashed, and we don't have these properties since we are not passing it during I mean we didn't pass it during user creation. But you can see the created ad, updated ad, email, these things are automatically populated properly. And now in next video what we are going to do, we are going to create one response, you can say interceptor, and that will create a generic response type. And let's say we are going to put everything in, I mean this thing in the database, I mean not database, I mean in data property, and we will create one success code, and I mean status code and all those things. So there will be a particular generic format of a response. So right now it is just returning it whatever we are trying to return. So that's not you can say standard way of doing. So we are going to create one interceptor.